It is November 13th, 2020 at 8:15 p.m. As of noon today in Eau Claire County, Wisconsin, there have been 5,557 total COVID-19 cases. There is 207 new cases today, 38 total deaths, and one new death today. In the United States, there have been 10.7 million cases of COVID-19 and 243,000 deaths. So far today, there have been 163,000 new cases and 1,172 new deaths. Today, I'm interviewing my mom. So if you could say what your name is and please share some demographic information such as your age, race, and gender.
Hi there. My name is Shawnda Kaeding. I am 45 years old and I am a white female.
What are some primary things that you do around the house on a day-to-day basis?
I've been working at home for several months, so usually every day is about the same. I'll get up early, get out my laptop, punch in, make breakfast for my husband before he heads off to his job. And then throughout the course of the day, I work from home. I work on my laptop and have various meetings, stuff like that. And then I'll also find myself doing things around the house. So clean up the kitchen, or I'll do a load of laundry, or run the vacuum, or something like that. I try to walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes or so every day, just to have a little bit of exercise. And so I'm not sitting around all day long. And then interact with my kids, and then supper time comes around, make supper and watch some TV and go to bed, and then do everything the same way the next day.
Okay. Where do you live and what is it like to live there?
I live in a little town just out of Eau Claire, Fall Creek, Wisconsin. It's a nice, quiet little town. Everybody seems to know everybody's business and what's going on, and it's pretty nice here. Pretty quiet.
Yes. When you first learned about COVID, what were your thoughts and how have your thoughts changed since then?
I first learned about COVID through work, actually in November, December timeframe of last year, because one of our customers is over in China, and we were having some issues with shipments and when to ship and stuff like that. And they had actually started a quarantine. One of the engineers' family lives over there, so she was talking to them on a daily basis and kind of had, knew what was going on then, and would tell us, on a daily, what was happening over there. And we were all like, oh, how long until this gets to the United States, and what's going to happen. So it was kind of scary, or we are kind of worried about what was going to happen. Then when we finally started getting cases in the United States, and we were continuing to work, and people were scared, and we didn't know. We, heard about deaths and heard about what was going on, and didn't really know what to expect. And uh, starting, I believe, March 16th, I've been working from home since then. And uh, it just, it was scary in the beginning. It was just the unknown. So, and like with anything, you just kind of, you worry about what's going to happen and what you have to do to keep yourself safe, and if you're going to lose somebody that you love. So um, it's a little better now, but those first few months there, it was different.
How would you say that things have changed then?
Things have settled down now. I think we have a better understanding of what the virus is and what it can do, and that yes, people are getting very sick and people are dying, and people that you would not expect to get really sick and die are dying. And it's just, I think things are a little bit more relaxed or not as worried as you were back in March and April. Things you realize that that you'll probably survive, and just the statistics and stuff, that there's such a high survival rate and stuff like that. So it makes it a little easier, not to worry so much about
Mm-hmm.
getting sick or what will happen if I get sick.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that worrying about sick is still an issue, something that still concerns you?
I would, from the people that I know or have heard have gotten sick, it was more of just like a really bad cold, and they felt really icky for several days. And like the main thing was not being able to taste something, and there's still friends of ours that they can't taste anything. So it I kind of have that hope that, if I do get this and stuff, that it'll just be a really bad cold, and that it'll be okay. And I worry about it, because it's more of the inconvenience of working and quarantining, and how do I get my groceries, and what if I run out of something, or what if, somebody stops over and it's just, oh, you can't come in because we might be sick, or we were sick and I don't want to get you sick. And so that's more of the issue now, I think, with what's going on.
Okay. How has COVID-19 affected your job and in what ways?
Like I said earlier, I've been working from home since about March 16th. Um, I work at TDK, Hutchinson Technology. I'm a quality engineering tech. So a lot of what I do, I can do from home on my laptop. I um, do meetings every day. I basically ensure that the quality meets our standards before it gets shipped. Through the summer, we were pretty slow. It was pretty quiet. I worked mostly 410s, so I would have, the Fridays and Saturday, Sunday off, and that seemed to work pretty well. I would get up in the morning around 6 o'clock, punch in. I'd be done about 4 o'clock, and it was a lot of watching TV actually for those couple months. And now we're actually getting busier, so it's a little bit more um, things going on with more meetings and more you know, trying to get things situated for this new product we have starting. So it's working pretty well. I think if I had to go into work, that I would. They've put up several different things at at the place. You have to have your temperature checked and all that stuff before you can go in. They basically don't want people in the building if they can help it. If you can work from home, they highly recommend you just stay and work from home. So that's what I've been doing.
Do you have any future concerns with COVID-19's effect on your employment, your employer, and the economy in general?
As far as my employment and my employer at this point, I don't have concerns where I, as related to COVID-19. I don't think that would have affected us per se, more of the business ourselves, that we were having, problems in slow times through the summer waiting for our new customer. Right now, like I said, we're ramping up. I mean, we'll probably within the next 6 months be trying to hire people at an alarming rate, and we're busy. So I'm not afraid of, getting laid off or anything like that. Definitely not due to COVID at all. The economy, however, is kind of hurting. Those small businesses and stuff like that are, you got to wonder what's going to happen when this is all over, or if this is, over, what's going to happen to those those places? Are they going to be able to sustain? And that's really hard to think of, those little mom and pop shops that have been open for years and years aren't, just can't, survive this. And that's the worst part of it.
Hmm. So how has COVID affected you and or your family's day-to-day activities?
Um, I think that having mom around all the time is kind of, we've gotten into a routine in the last several months, and it's not that bad. I think, you know, um, dad goes to work like normal every day. Julia, you work, off and on throughout the week, and now you have most of your classes are at home, so you're hanging out with us. And we both have our own little offices that we have. And Jacob, our son is looking for another job, and he's just kind of chilling and doing his thing. So I know there's times where it's like, oh, mom's in a meeting, or you gotta be quiet, mom's in a meeting, or something like that. Or I don't have, I don't have that one-on-one with, the people at work. So sometimes I complain a lot to my husband about what's going on and stuff like that. But I think home life is it's pretty reasonable, and it's not so bad.
Hmm. So
And I
you'd
think,
say that.
sorry, I think too that having my kids are older, so I think it'd been a totally different story if my kids were little and they were trying to go through school, or they were in diapers and needed more attention. But you know, it, the kids are older; they're doing their own thing, so it's not really that much of an issue.
So you would say that managing day-to-day activities in the house is pretty much like what it was before?
Yep, I would say even now that, I'm home all day, so if I need to, my kitchen's a mess and I need to go tidy up the kitchen before I need to make supper, or somebody got into something and I need to go run a load of wash, or, do something like that. I'm here so I can do that, and it's not something that I'm doing at 8 o'clock at night now.
Mhm.
It's something I can do at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's done. So yeah.
Mhm. Um, so you've talked about how work and adjusting to home been a little bit of a challenge, but it's not been too difficult to adapt to COVID-19. Challenges are that you've faced during the COVID-19 outbreak?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Um, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced during the COVID-19 outbreak?
I think personally in the beginning, um, it was scary. We didn't know what was going on, and with health and stuff like that, you didn't know if you got sick, if you were going to survive, and stuff. And then um, I think it was hard on a lot of people that restaurants were closed. You couldn't, go get a cheeseburger at your favorite cheeseburger place, and you couldn't, do this or do that. You had to wear the masks, and you had to go to, certain entrances and stores, and you had to wash your hands, and just all this stuff. It was kind of full of pressure. And I know there were days where it was just so frustrating to think of how things had changed like that, and then those things that you couldn't do. And there was bouts of just sadness and depression, and the feeling of, I'm cooped up in this house now, I'm going to work from home for how long? And it just like scared, we're scared, and I
Mhm,
think that's the biggest thing, was that emotional toll that it took on in the beginning and through the summer, when everything got canceled and you couldn't do things, you couldn't hang out with your friends, you couldn't do those things because you were scared to get sick, or it was against the rules to do it. So um I had a couple months there where it was pure depression. It was just sadness, and it was hard.
Mhm. Um, so adjusting to restaurants and places and stuff like that that are closed, how have you, our family, and our friends or community, how have we found ways to overcome that through recreation? Like what kind of recreation have we engaged in?
I know in those first couple weeks when it was like, oh, that shock kind of, I'm stuck here and I'm stuck in the house all day and I'm gonna go crazy. I know we took a walk a few times. We went out to Big Falls and walked around, or one day we went out in the country and drove around and would stop and look at this bridge, or walk through this trail or something like that. And I think we found ourselves through the summer, probably every night we'd go for a car ride and we'd just ride around town and look at people's yards and go through the country and look for deer. It was just trying to get out of the house a little bit and do those things. And um, my husband, who likes to do different things and stuff, decided he got a race car and decided to start racing. So he started drag racing on the weekends. So that got him out of the house, and I think that made him feel better. It made him have a sense of purpose. So he wasn't so depressed about, everything he couldn't do. So
Mhm.
I think that helps.
How would you say that COVID-19 has affected our community?
Well, Fall Creek is a small community. We don't have a lot of big businesses or anything like that. We've got the gas stations and the bars and a couple, little shops and stuff like that. So I know it was hard on them. We tried to support as much as we could, the restaurants in town and things like that. We'd go get ice cream at the shop or one bar. I know the Lions Club had uh, chicken the summertime. They had usually would have, they'd have their big fundraiser, Lions Fest, and that got canceled. So they did chicken. We drove through and got chicken. And um, I know a lot of little towns did stuff like that. So I think it's hard on the community, but yet I think we're a small enough community that everyone is looking out for each other. The churches started doing some food bank type stuff, and you could pick up food if you needed food. And I think neighbors started looking after neighbors a little bit more too.
Mhm. Um, so how have people around in our community been responding to the pandemic other than helping neighbors and stuff like that?
I think most people in our community are pretty good. Everyone wears the mask and everybody's watching out for each other um and stuff like that. I think in our little community, they've responded pretty well.
Um, Self-isolation and flattening the curve are two key ideas that have emerged during the pandemic. How have you, your family, friends, and community responded to requests to self-isolate and flatten the curve?
I know in the beginning when that, we're gonna shut everything down and we want you to stay at home. And I think we tried our best. I know we'd go get groceries, probably once every 10 days or so. We'd try to get all kinds of meals that we knew that if we had to be quarantined or something like that, that we would be stocked and have stuff to eat. Um, I think a lot of people in the community did that as well. Uh, just sticking around home and stuff, and then we would see a lot more people out and about. You'd see a lot more people taking walks and a lot more people um, doing things outside and doing lawn care and, all that kind of stuff. It was just a weird kind of sense of, everybody's kind of staying and isolating or sticking to themselves, but yet there was so many people outside and so many people out doing things, and it was kind of a difference there.
How do you think it's changed in the last 9 months?
I think people are still, doing those walks and doing that outside kind of stuff. But I think people have realized more that, hey, if I get this, I'm probably not going to die from it. So it's probably okay if I have that campfire and have a bunch of friends over. Or it's probably okay if I meet my buddies at the bar and go have a drink. Or, go and do stuff that they wouldn't have been doing, in April or May. And I think now that people are thinking, I think it's okay if I go to this wedding that there's 100 people at and nothing's gonna happen. Maybe that's the wrong way to be thinking things right now, especially with the numbers on the rise.
Mhm.
Maybe that's not necessarily what we should be doing. Um, but I think that's what has gotten into people's heads is that, hey, I'm probably gonna be okay if I get this. I probably am not gonna die. So they've been just going about their normal lives again.
Mm. So even though we are all likely to survive if we get COVID-19, you are immunocompromised. So would you be able to share any information about that?
Sure. I had a kidney transplant 11 years ago, so I am on immunosuppressives. So basically, my immune system is not like everybody else's. It's a little weaker than anyone else's. So I would be in one of those high risk categories that if I do get this, I have potentially do have a higher risk of this really affecting me or really, dying from this virus. So I know we've looked up, facts on the internet and stuff like that. And it's shown over the last couple of months that those people that have had like kidney transplants and stuff like that aren't really dying at any different rate than what someone, a normal person would have. I have spoke to my doctor and they even were like, well, yes, you should take precautions and stuff like this. But, if you get this, it'll probably be, just like everybody else gets sick. So, and I think everybody gets sick to a different level with this, that it's hard telling how your specific body is going to react. So you just don't know until you do get sick and then you find out what's gonna happen. So,
When the pandemic first started, would you say that you were more concerned about your own health than you are now?
I would say yes. I was still at work in March, and we were kind of talking about, well, what are we going to do at work? What's going to happen? Why are we all still here? Because, you work in cubicles that are, you're right next door to people, and they're saying, oh, you need to be 6 feet apart. And it's like, well, you can't be 6 feet apart. Um, and so we're like, well, because of what we make at this our company, we were considered an essential business. So they're like, well, you're essential, so you're not going to shut down. So there was a couple days there where it was, well, I probably shouldn't be here. I'm one of these high risk people. So I had actually gone to HR and said, I believe that my doctors recommended I am high risk, that I should probably work from home. And they were like, yep, yep, that's cool. We'll put you on leave of absence and you can still work from home if you want to. And that's, we'll go that way. And then that was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there were emails going out that we are going to any people that did not need to be in the building needed to go and work from home. So it's like a matter of, you know, a couple hours and they had changed direction. And now I've been here since then. So
You've talked a bit about mental health and how you've been struggling the last couple months with COVID and being stuck in the house. How would you say that COVID-19 and the pandemic is affecting people's mental and or physical health?
I think it definitely has an effect on what's going on. You know, these people that have uh, emotional or you know OCD or depression issues already, and they've had to be isolated from people. They've had to, you know, they can't get the care that they're used to. I think that's definitely affecting people. You know, you see that the numbers are up for, you know, drug overdoses, suicides, you know, even like marital issues and domestic violence and stuff like that. It's just all those numbers are up, and it's just it's taking a toll on those people that had issues before, and
Mhm.
it's making it worse, especially with, you know, having to quarantine or having to, you know, not go to work. There's money problems, you know, all that is causing issues, and it's definitely going to have repercussions, you know, coming in the next couple months, and if
Mhm.
how long this continues and even into years, you know, there could be definite issues going forward with that.
You talk a lot about different statistics and like using the internet as a resource and numbers and doctors and things like that. So, what have been your primary sources of news during the pandemic?
I think in the beginning we watched the news a lot because you were curious. You wanted to see, you know, you had that kind of that gore factor. You wanted to know how many people were dying, and you wanted to see the pictures of the morgues that were set up and stuff like this. I think we watched the news a lot, and you wanted to know those numbers. And um, I think that after a time, I know like in the mornings when we would get up and husband would get ready for work, we would watch, you know, WEAU, we watch the local news and just trying to, you know, do the thing. Well, he would leave for work at 7, and well, at 7 o'clock the Today Show comes on. So for those couple months there, it was just doom and gloom. It was just horrible. And I would, as soon as he would leave, I would turn the TV off because I didn't want to listen to it anymore. So I know that, you know, we primarily would watch NBC. It seemed to me that everything was just so scary and so, you know, they made it out that it's just so deadly, and just the way they would present their numbers for things and and stuff. It made the media makes it seem like it's just so horrendous and just so horrible, and it that's I think that's part of the issue too, you know, uh, getting information that way.
What do you think are important issues about the pandemic that the media may or may not be covering?
I think that the media, they do a good job telling you how many people were tested and how many people are positive and how many people are in the hospital and have died. But they haven't told you, or they never really tell you, well, this many people tested positive, but, you know, this many people never needed medical care or any extra treatment, you know, and this many people have, you know, survived, and this is your survival rate, you know, is like 99%. Is just they always focus on the bad aspects of it instead of, I wouldn't say good aspects, but like the positive things, you know, that people the survival rate is so much higher and stuff. And yes, it's horrible to lose people and that people are dying, and it's so sad, but yet, you know, that they don't really share that, well, this many people were hospitalized, but this many people were checked out of the hospital today and they're fine, they're good. You know, I think maybe that, if we could give a little update on that once a week, that would be great.
Um, how do you think bias between different news sources, different media like Facebook, have affected the public's perception of COVID-19?
Um, Facebook is always not a good resource. Everybody likes to post stuff that um, isn't necessarily accurate all the time. A lot of people don't fact check things before they post things. There's lots of um, kind of conspiracy theory type stuff out there, and a lot of stuff that's just like, really, you really believe that? Like, oh, we're putting up the 5G towers, so everybody's got to isolate, and oh, don't go get tested because that's how they're putting the chips in your brain so they can keep track of you. It's just kind of funny, some of the stuff that you can see. And every news channel is different. You have the more liberal based television channels, and you have the more conservative based, but they've all been reporting basically the same thing. It's all that same rhetoric on both ways.
Mhm. So even though news sources have been sharing pretty much similar reportings of COVID, do you think that news sources or social media have politicized COVID-19?
Definitely, I think that, and this is something where it, I myself am a Republican, and I would say I'm a Trump supporter, but um, I w- I wouldn't, you know, I'm not gonna support completely the way things were handled. I wouldn't say he should have done this, he should have done this. Um, I think that at the time he did what he thought should have done. But I think that a lot of the Democratic, liberal type people like to blame him for the way things have been going, for the deaths that have happened, that they say, oh, you should have shut things down sooner, you should have done this. Well, hindsight's always 2020. You can always pick apart things that were done and were not done and blame someone else. But you can see clearly that, all over in Europe, they're having the same problem right now as we are. Their case numbers are up, their deaths are up. There's people that they're rioting over there because they're sick of the government having the control. So it's not a Trump thing, it's a nationwide, entire, countries wide thing. You can't put politics into it. It is what it is, and it's really no one's fault, and it stinks. And to blame one person is kind of silly.
Mhm. How have our local municipal leaders and government officials responded to the outbreak?
I think locally in our little community, they've done pretty well. In the beginning, they closed the park and they closed the village hall, and they tried to be careful with how people had contact with stuff like that. County wise as well, I think they've tried to make sure people are doing the masks and the distancing and all that stuff. I know Governor Evers has really tried to make sure that um, the businesses and stuff are being careful and things like that. So I think I consider what they're doing and or what they're attempting to do, and even currently, it was different in the beginning. People were more scared, so they were more willing to do what was asked of them. And I think now people have come to realize that, like I said, hey, I might get this and I'm probably not going to die from it. So they're getting to be like, whatever, I don't really, what are they going to do? What are they going to come arrest me because I have 12 people at my party instead of 10? You know, so it's just kind of, people have gotten tired of it. So
Do you have any thoughts on how local, state, or federal leaders are responding to the crisis differently?
I know that, I know different states all have their way of doing things and stuff. And you could even tie that to party lines. I know a lot more of the Democratic type governors are trying to have more restrictions or to try to shut things down. I know that more of the Republican and stuff governors are kind of given, not as tight, or and stuff like that, like the South Dakota's governor and stuff hasn't had as many restrictions and things. um I think they're all trying to do their best to keep their citizens safe and stuff, but I think it all kind of comes down to the individual themselves and whether they want to follow the rules or not. So, basically, there's no policing of these rules. So, especially if you're doing your own thing, if you're having your own get together, the cops aren't going to come and bust it up. So, it just right now it's come down to, you know, if people are willing to do what needs to be done, and that it all lies on the individual.
Has your experience with COVID-19 and the pandemic transformed how you think about your family, friends, and community?
I know that it's kind of weeded out some of those people that you thought were pretty normal, and you can now realize that they might be a little off on some of the things that they think. Um, it just kind of, some of our friends, family even, um, think this is all a joke, it's a hoax, it's a government control thing. It's all kind of, like I said about putting the little chip when they do the swab up your nose, that people believe that. And they're still your friends, they're still your family. Um, but you've learned that you can't argue with people. It's not worth it. You just let people believe what they want to believe, because if you try to change someone's mind, or try to explain, well, I don't know if that's quite right, you're just going to argue and you're just going to get in a fight, and then you will lose a friend over it. So it's more of, you just kind of, yep, okay, if that's what you want to think, then you just do that. Yeah.
Knowing what you know now and what you've experienced, what do you think that individuals, communities, or governments need to keep in mind for the future?
I think that going into the future, and I think that even, talk a month from now, or you can talk 6 months or a year from now, that this has changed how we are as a people. Um, that yes, we need to, I don't want to say follow the rules, but we need to be good to each other. And is something as simple as putting a mask on to prevent your spit from flying out when you're talking to someone, you know, it's simple. It's a simple thing that you can do. And I think that people thinking that that's a way that the government's trying to control you, um, we need to keep in mind that no, is it? And that going forward, we need to wash our hands, stay clean, be considerate. And I think that's kind of changed some people's way of thinking, you know.
Okay, well, thank you for talking with me today and being an interviewee. It's been a fun time with you.
Well, you too.